So there's 7 modes you got to worry about on the Canon camera. Automatic mode, shutter priority mode, aperture priority mode, full manual mode, spotlight mode, nighttime mode, and easy shooting mode. Okay, to set the camera in shutter priority mode, you turn the dial to TV. Here we have Talon swing in a box, and there's a little bit of motion blur, but not too much. If you change the shutter speed by turning the knob down here, on the Sony, the shutter speed is located right there. And it's measured in fractions of a second, so here 60, 100, 120, 180, etc. Again with the Canon, here we have Talon swinging, he's swinging at 130. If we turn the shutter speed up to 1/60th of a second, more images are being captured per second and you're getting a lot less motion blur. We can turn it up to 1/100th of a second and the image gets even more clear. And it goes all the way up to the thousands, but generally you're fine at 160 to 1/100, depending on how much motion is in your shot. For demonstration purposes, let's turn it all the way down to 130 again. And let's go one lower to 1/15th of a second. Now you're getting a lot more motion blur. We can turn it down even more to 1/8th of a second. Because so little frames are being captured each second, here we're at 1/4 now, you're getting a lot more motion blur. The exposure lock button allows you to override the camera's automatically selected aperture. Aperture priority mode works in the same sense that shutter speed priority mode does. In this case, you're setting the aperture and the camera's automatically selecting the shutter speed for you. Here we have Talon in the background. There's a drill in the midground and a drill in the foreground. If we change the aperture ring, which is the one closest to you if you're looking into the camera, we'll turn it up, and as we do, the background becomes more and more in focus. As you're basically closing your aperture, the camera is automatically adjusting the shutter speed to get you more or less light. And it works the same way when you go back down to 1.6. So at a low f-stop, Talon's really blurred. You got a shallow depth of field. At a very high f-stop, you have a deep depth of field, and there's a lot more things in focus. The aperture ring on the Sony is located here. The exposure lock button lets you basically select the aperture and the shutter speed. Personally, I wouldn't worry too much about the last 3 settings, but you should know what they are. Full manual mode, it lets you set the aperture and shutter speed independently of each other. Spotlight mode is for when you're shooting a well-lit subject with a darkened background. Nighttime mode is kind of useless. I mean, it slows down your shutter speed for you, but it's all the same stuff that you can do in either shutter speed mode or aperture priority mode. An easy shooting mode is a lot like automatic mode, only you can't manual focus ever. VCR mode, all the way behind the off switch, is here. And the controls are on the top, underneath the handle. On the Sony, VCR mode is next to the start recording button. The controls for the Sony VCR mode are underneath the LCD screen.